The sense of Caravan is steeped in the fact that people love to hear stories and people love to read stories. We sort of blend the best of two worlds, the best of reportage and the best of storytelling. Somewhere I felt that this was a space that was missing in Indian journalism. And I think, again, because we're the first and we continue to be the only magazine that is a space for quality narrative writing, all we had to do was fulfill that niche with the kind of quality that people would appreciate.
I read the Caravan because it's well written, well edited and thoughtful.
I read the Caravan because it makes me think.
I read the Caravan because, for starters, it's intelligent. The work is nuanced in a country where nuance is dead.
I read the Caravan because it's the smartest and best written magazine of long-form journalism in the country.
I read the Caravan because it's the only one of its kind.
The vision for Caravan was to make it a narrative journalism magazine, the first of its kind in India. In that sense, Caravan is different from the news weeklies, which curate the top stories of the previous week, while we put a stress on the more evergreen and the meteor. In other words, the Caravan is like a dicentric chromosome, where on the one end it's thorough reporting, and on the other end it's craftier writing. In the West, in the genre of narrative journalism, you have these reputed titles like The New Yorker, The Atlantic, Granta. And in India, we had this space right in front of us, which we decided to pitch Caravan right there, and then it worked.
When we started the Caravan, our idea was not to develop this specifically as a political magazine. We envisioned the magazine as a magazine that touched upon politics, business, popular culture. And over the last 2 years, I think we have done a mix of stories that sort of embody this editorial vision of the Caravan. We feel that our readers are fairly eclectic in their reading interest. Some people want to read more about politics, some people are reading the magazine because of its robust art and culture reportage, some people reading for the photo essays, some are reading it for its books.
Initially, we started with making a list of accomplished authors, non-fiction authors from South Asia, and we called them contributing editors of the magazine, and they became our first generation writers, so to speak. That helped us demonstrate what direction we are looking at in terms of writing and reporting. Then we hired a few reporters and trained them according to our needs. So in that sense, Caravan is home for both good experience, solid experience, and new bubbling energy.
Caravan was actually the first magazine of Delhi Press, which was launched in 1940 by my grandfather, Mr. Vishwanath. It was one of the first magazines that was launched by an Indian in English, and gradually it became one of the few magazines that defined English journalism right through 50s and 60s. So it was natural that if we had to launch a magazine that was to dabble with literary journalism, we should name it Caravan.
When we do something, we only do it once, and we do it very big, we do it very deep, we do it in great detail. So we're very selective about what kind of stories we pursue. I'm very passionate with writers about focusing on things that are very particular. I don't want a story about what's happening right now in Punjab. I want a story about the Chief Minister of Punjab, or I want a story about the Director General of Police in Chhattisgarh. I don't want a story that's just about Maoists. So that by virtue of zeroing in on something very detailed and presenting a complete, or what seems to the reader like a complete portrait of that detailed thing, we learn a lot more about what's going on, even though we're starting at a very micro level. And so whether that's Karunanidhi, whether it's Manmohan, whether it's Air India, whether it's the Formula One racetrack, David Headley, all of these stories that I think we've put on the cover in the last year have this aspect to them, that they're very detailed, they have a very compelling narrative framework so that you want to read them. So I think that that's the main thing that sets the magazine apart.
One of the things I wanted to do is to move away from the idea of just a review, to see if we could encourage the literary essay, which can be tied to a book, can be tied to a writer, but also moves a little away into context. And I think there's a difference between opinion and argument. And a lot of book reviews are really just expressions of opinion about the book. And what I'm trying to do is get the writer of the article or of the essay, whatever you want to call it, to actually build up an argument around a book or a series of books or a writer's work. We are working on developing a more intelligent readership, one that doesn't respond in a knee-jerk way, that engages with the piece as much as the writer is trying to engage with her subject.
As an Indian writer or novelist, I know how much I owe not just to Indian novels in English, but also to novels in translation from the whole range of Indian languages outside of English. What I'm trying to do in the magazine is to produce every month a story from a different part of the country, incorporating a different view of what's happening in the country, sometimes an urban reality, a rural reality, a small town reality. That's one side of the work. Also, though, I would like the section to be cosmopolitan, to incorporate not just Indian energies, but energies from all around the world. So I think the magazine is trying to provide the widest possible outlook on the richness and the diversity of Indian institutions, Indian art forms.
I'm an admirer of it for three reasons. I think you have in-depth analytical articles which give a fairly full picture and understanding of the subject. Secondly, it's extremely well written. Linguistically, its style is easy to read, and that I applaud. And thirdly, it's a journal that evokes a wide cross-section of views, so it doesn't have an ideology or a particular standpoint, except perhaps for the quest of truth.
The profile of Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was very interesting, and a very different way the profile of Anand Kejriwal was very interesting. Getting into the depths of people, understanding them, their circumstances, their challenges can be particularly rewarding to read and digest. And recently I received on the internet the now banned article on Mr. Chaudhary of IIPM, and I thought that was a superbly written piece as well. So that kind of stuff you can't find anywhere else except in Caravan.
As a journalist in India, you often are made aware of the fact that there are many holy cows in our industry and in terms of what you do cover. The fact is that very few people actually question say the Indian intelligence infrastructure or our nuclear establishment, and to cover each story from both sides and to show that there are many angles to every story. I particularly appreciated the one about India's role in Afghanistan, and the essay and the profile of Saeed Ali Shah Gilani was one of my favorite issues.
I think it's also, it's gaining confidence and getting better and getting more publicity and more profile. I strongly disapproved of Mihir Sharma's wicked profile of my friend Sohail Seth, but it's an example how Caravan at the moment is setting the news agenda and creating little kind of literary shell bursts which are going off, and suddenly everyone's talking about it, everyone's tweeting about it, everyone's, have you read the new profile of X or Y? And that's always a good sign of a magazine that's going well and doing the right stuff.
The interesting part is it's not sensationalism, and that's the most important point, because I want to feel the pulse, and Caravan gives me the pulse in it.
Also, its production values are so superior to those of any of its rivals, and the presentation is attractive. The quality of the photographs is superb. The quality of the writing is consistently good.
What I think it's done is that it's given voice to a whole new generation of bright young writers, particularly in the non-fiction space. In fact, non-fiction is booming, and one of the reasons it's booming in the country is because of Caravan.
One of the things I liked very much was Girish Shahane's review of Catherine Boo's book. It made me go immediately the next day and buy the book. The review was thoughtful. It wasn't just talking about the book, but it was laying the context of writing about books on poverty, of writing non-fiction of a certain kind. Girish talked about a certain method in Catherine's approach to the subject. Now, this was all stuff that I learned.
There's a point of view of the writer, but that is
but at the same time there are enough facts for you to be able to make up your own mind in case you disagree with the writer. That is a sign of integrity, I think, of the writer and of the editor, I suppose. That is very rare. To me, that's an article and a writer and editor who respects me as a reader.
What I like about Caravan is that it's very conversational. You cover a pretty large variety. There's poetry coming in, there's once in a while some maybe graphic novels also coming in. So, you know, I just feel that it's every time you pick up the issue, there are new things to look forward.
The magazine that the Caravan most obviously comes closest to is The New Yorker. Same styles, narrative journalism, etc., etc. But there's a difference. The Caravan is sharper. It has a sharper political edge to it, and with that edge comes a set of political opinions. Also, the contributors to the Caravan and the issues it chooses to highlight and the timing it uses to highlight those issues betray a basket of values that the Caravan stands for. I think that's really important, to walk the fine line between putting it out there, but to always have an authorial and editorial point of view.